What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA. We're smoking weed and we're talking mixed martial arts. My name is Jarrod. I'm here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is episode number 112. Today, Paul and I are going to be smoking and talking all about the UFC with a look back at the results of the Santos versus Walker fight night from here in Las Vegas. We're going to discuss the upcoming BKFC Montana, headlined by MMA veterans Joe Riggs and Melvin Guillard. And we're definitely going to be smoking and talking about the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 for the WBC Heavyweight title from right here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Before we dive into the combat sports, though, you know what time it is. Grab your weed, fire it up, and let's dive into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
This week, we got a new one and a repeat of last week.
Reruns.
But that's what Tropaya Pie, which we still have, is definitely good enough to make a second appearance here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
We're adding to the mix this week, everybody, some Diamond OG, which is one of my favorites of the OG clan. So named because of its sparkling THC crystals, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Sparkling.
Sparkles.
I got to say, this weed is some big bud weed, too.
Fat buds.
Like big, huge, fat, quarter-ounce buds. It's very, very gorgeous. Diamond OG is another one, though, where it has mixed genetics that are basically unknown. It's OG Kush crossed with, who knows? Yeah. Nobody knows. But it is a very strong indica.
Nobody knows, but everybody cares.
Strong indica, strong body high. Probably something we shouldn't be smoking before we set off on a podcast.
Sounds like a plan, Stan.
Which means we're definitely going to be puffing this down.
Yeah, which means we're going to smoke the fuck out of it.
We got pipes, we got bubblers, we got a joint rolled. We even got a PAX 3 with some flour in it this week instead of the concentrate. So, with the weed of the week done, hope you're smoking something good. Let's get started, Paul, with the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which had its umpteenth card from Las Vegas at the Apex Center. Mm-hmm. And before we talk about it, which was headlined by Johnny Walker versus Thiago Santos at light heavyweight, I'm going to be glad when these are done, which sounds weird to say for hometown MMA events, but I'm over the Apex, and it's small cage, it's no crowd, and it's just, can we just put them all on like the pay-per-views? Because it's weird, because we're doing pay-per-views from Vegas also, which are at T-Mobile with a full crowd.
Yeah.
And a regular size cage.
It's not in the budget, Jarrod. All right? Stop asking. It's not in the budget.
It's not in the UFC's budget. I know, apparently, $1 more to a fighter will basically ruin the UFC. Despite that whole, what did Connor say? 11 bill?
Yeah, there's no fucking way.
No, sorry. It's not worth 11
billion. Nope.
All right, but we had that event here. I've lost count, but it was UFC.
I think it's 31 or something like that.
38, I do believe. But it was headlined Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos. We haven't seen Johnny Walker in quite some time, about a year. Since then, he bounced over to Ireland, where he's been living full-time, training at SPG Blast under John Kavanagh. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of anticipation for his fans seeing his comeback fight here. And, well, he didn't win. He loses a 5-round decision in a fight everybody guaranteed wouldn't get past the second round.
I'll tell you what. If anything, I think we saw a little bit more maturity from Johnny Walker, but I don't know if he's polished yet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that John Kavanagh was able to mold him into someone who was willing to stick to a game plan and not go too wild and try to, I feel like he tried to keep Santos at bay for most of the fight, but I just think I don't know if it was his confidence in his new style of fighting or the consistency. One of the two was off, and that led to him losing the fight, in my opinion.
You can't blame him. I mean, it's smart to try and keep Thiago Santos at bay and work from the outside with that power that he has.
Yeah.
And he did take a few good shots.
He took some big ones.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got a chin. He's a big dude. He's bigger than Thiago, which was surprising.
I wouldn't say he's bigger. I'd say he's longer, though.
I was overall kind of disappointed, though, especially at his corner's advice going into the 5th round. You've got Kavanaugh telling him that he's ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think at the time that he was. I had it even up. Didn't like the advice, and I didn't like a lot of the hesitation from him. But again, I get it when you're facing Santos. But
Yeah.
overall, just to be frank, I wasn't too impressed.
Yeah, I think it was a clear 3-2 type situation. I thought Walker won the 1st and the 4th, and Santos won the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th.
That 2nd, 3rd, and 5th form.
Yeah. In all seriousness, though, we did. If you're Thiago Santos, you needed that win. You know.
It was pretty close in strikes overall. It was 48-44, Johnny
Mhm.
Walker with the lead. I mean,
Yeah.
there was no
I think the
takedowns or
significance.
subs
I
or anything.
think the significance of the strikes in the 5th round are really the difference. He hit he hit Walker with a huge overhand, like I believe a minute into the 5th round,
Mm-hmm.
that staggered him pretty bad. But
Yeah, see, that was the thing. Out of the 44 strikes that Thiago Santos landed, I mean, how many of those were just bombs? There was,
yeah,
I mean,
a lot of it
third
was.
at
Yeah,
least.
a lot of it. That was what he was almost using to like close the distance. He was kind of throwing bombs to get in and
Mhm.
throwing shots over shots over shots over shots and landing here and there. But I definitely thought Walker was more efficient with his striking.
I wish he would have done more of the leg kicking that he implemented in the later rounds, but neither
Yeah,
here nor there.
I feel like they were a lot of his ability to not only keep him on the outside but interrupt his flow was from those low leg kicks and I like late in the 3rd and then the 4th and 5th he was able to use those. But I wish like you said though I do wish he had maybe implemented that in the 1st round and was able to, because once he was able to find success with them, one thing that Santos does really well is he has really powerful body kicks, but he does telegraph them like very very like like he thing is with Thiago Santos, everything he throws is with so much ferocity. It's kind of hard not to telegraph it because he winds up with
Mhm.
so many of his kicks and punches that I feel like it was one of those things that Walker learned in the fight, where like whenever Santos looked like he was about to switch stances and load up on that body kick, he would kick that front leg, so he just interrupted his
Mhm.
ability to get it off. And I do think that came in the fight. I don't know if that was like the game plan though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't
No.
know either, but I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, though, I thought it was a pretty lackluster fight. I mean, even looking at the stats,
Mhm.
you're looking at 44 and 48 in a 5-round fight
Yeah.
between two supposedly action-oriented heavyweights. If you just break it down, that's like, that's less than 10 strikes per round.
Yeah.
These are 5-minute rounds, so that's less than 10 strikes or 2 strikes per minute from each guy. I mean,
Mhm.
that's not much.
Strange. We've seen that a lot at 205 as of late. Like, there's been a lot of these like weird stinkers where you've seen like guys who usually go in and finish each other are kind of more hesitant. It's very strange.
It is strange. And using that as a segue into the next fight, speaking of strange, how about the Kevin Holland versus Kyle Daukaus fight
Yeah,
at
it's a
middleweight,
weird
which
one.
was an interesting matchup right up until Daukaus won,
Yeah.
and then he didn't win.
Well, here's the thing. I do think.
Well, let's explain what happened
Yeah,
for
go
those
ahead.
that might not have seen it. But, what round was it? It was the second or
Second.
the third? Second round. There's a clash of heads. This was an accidental headbutt, but it was done where Daukaus was coming kind of up from a crouch position right as Kevin Holland was coming in, and the clash actually happened when the top of Daukaus's head basically hit right on Kevin Holland's jaw and where you would land a perfect punch,
Mhm.
and it literally knocked him unconscious as a flash KO. He drops down, but Kyle doesn't really see this, like he can't really see it from that angle.
Mhm.
And the ref comes around him, looks like he's going to come in and stop it, Dan Mergliata. Then he backs off as Kevin Holland starts fighting back, waking up on the ground.
Mhm.
Then Holland gets submitted, and then there is a discussion amongst the athletic commission and the referees
Mhm.
because Dan Mergliata had waived the signal
To review.
to have
Yeah.
it be reviewed while the action was still going on. So it went from like a yellow light and then to a red light, meaning the decision was under review. Ultimately, they call it a no contest due to the foul leading to a fight-ending sequence.
Yeah.
So that's what happened now.
So here's the thing. Let's just talk about that a little bit more real quick. I feel like this is maybe the second fight I've ever actually seen the video review be used. You know, between this and the Sterling Yan fight, I think those are the only two fights I can really think of where there was a serious like fight-ending sequence that was decided based off a review.
I do believe there's a rule here in Nevada and some other commissions.
It has to be a fight-ending. Like the
Yeah,
fight
that
has to
it
be
has
over
to
to
be
review it.
over to review it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you do review it, then the fight's over
Automatically over.
automatically.
Yeah.
Which is a bizarre rule. to me.
Bizarre rule because think about how many things in other sports get reviewed nowadays and has nothing to do with. Well, it does have a lot to do with the outcome, but you know what I mean. It is a lot less riding on the idea of getting a review. Like you know, in football, you don't have to give up the game if you lose the fucking
Could you
review.
imagine? If you
Like,
couldn't
yeah.
go to the tape in football,
Yeah.
you couldn't play the game correctly.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think they got this one right.
I do as well.
I don't necessarily. I'm not as on board with you with Dan Miragliotta handling it the right way.
Well, he said he was coming in to stop it. Like he spoke afterwards. He said he was, as soon as he saw Kevin Holland go out, because he thought he was unconscious, that he went in to stop it. But when he got there, Holland was fighting back, and he thought that perhaps he had seen it wrong.
Yeah.
So he waved for the review.
It's such a touch and go thing, you know, because like I feel like it was a bang bang kind of play, but I do wish we got maybe a foul warning and Kevin was able to maybe come to and continue.
I think even if he had stopped it prior to the submission,
Yeah.
like let's say he had, I think that the fight would have been over because I don't see any doctors agreeing when you can clearly see that Kevin went unconscious, being like, no, you can keep fighting even though you went unconscious, even though it was only for a second.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening
I feel that.
in this age. Like it would have been over then as well.
Yeah.
If it had just been a headbutt and he hadn't gone unconscious, he had just fallen down or something, then
Yeah.
different. But like he was out. Like he was
Yeah,
He
he
was
was out. He
sleeping.
was out. I don't know. I do think my opinion of it is a little skewed also because I did listen to Kevin talk about it today, and he was saying had he been given his full 5 minutes, he could have came back to and still fought at that same level,
Yeah,
which
see, I
could
don't
be
think
his
that
own
would have
ego.
happened though.
Yeah,
Like,
could be his own ego talking a little bit as well.
You're not going to get
But
5
yeah.
minutes to recover from being unconscious.
Yeah, I
Like
feel
maybe
that.
from a foul, but not
Yeah.
unconscious.
Yeah.
Like on tape, you're out. Like the doctor's like, you're done, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he is saying all the right things. He's saying, I feel like I lost twice. You know, I got KO'd and then choked, and he's not bitching. And
Yeah.
that's the way to handle it, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's going to say you can fight on. You're right. I mean, what's he going to be like? Nah, that was it for me.
It ends up as a no contest, and so on Kevin's side, he's more than willing to run it back, and on Daukaus' side, he's more of like, nah, we'll see. I gotta help my brother with his camp for his Derek Lewis fight and this and that, and yeah, I don't really see any reason to run it back, which I don't necessarily agree with. Maybe there wasn't the stakes.
He's also saying it shouldn't have been a no contest either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I get it, dude. You won.
But you
you
won
didn't
by an
win.
illegal move.
But yeah,
just-
like you
just
won
as
because
much-
dude was unconscious.
That's just as much as like someone like Peter Yan saying like, fucking he won the belt against Aljo and Aljo's a chicken for fucking
right.
fucking backing out. Like, no, you definitely knocked me out with an illegal move and expected me to fucking jump back in and fucking keep it moving.
And I hate it when they say that about Sterling. Like, oh, he
Yeah.
should have. Like, dude, you're not faking that.
Yeah, well, in the same way is Kevin's not faking. Kevin
No.
was obviously knocked out
was
by a
out.
headbutt. It had to been like a weird sequence where it could have been a punch or a headbutt or like it was. There was no punch before that rocked Kevin whatsoever. It was more or less a grappling match for the first round and a half. It was a whole lot of Daukaus pushing Kevin Holland onto the cage and Kevin showing him that he had been working on his grappling and
Did you hear him talking?
yeah,
That's funny.
normal Kevin Holland shit,
He's like,
Uh,
see, look over here. Look how good I did.
But it's true though. His I do think one thing coming out of this fight that we did see was that he is put in the work on the grappling side of things.
Yes, a little unfortunate for him. He's lost several in a row now after being on such a hot streak of 5.
I think he lost 3.
Yeah, he's lost 3 in a row after winning 5 in a row.
Yeah.
Basically his 2021 campaign went the opposite. But he's jumped into some short notice fights.
Yeah.
And
he hasn't took any beatings, though.
no, and he's competing in a weight class above where he should be, in my opinion.
Me too.
So he fights a lot of guys naturally bigger and stronger than him, as we saw illustrated in the Derek Brunson fight.
And the Marvin Vettori fight.
And definitely that as well. You know, there was an interesting fight that was... It's interesting because it was canceled. It was supposed to be on this card that I want to discuss for a little while because it brings up some interesting points. How many times can I use that word? Interesting.
It's quite interesting.
But we had Aspen Ladd was going to be fighting, was it Macy Chiasson?
Uh-huh.
But then Aspen could not make weight.
Yeah.
Which is
A big
happened
no-no.
a few times now in her career. And Macy declined the bout, which I respect 100%. I often think fighters should do that.
Yeah.
But before we get into the whys and the hows of why we both feel that fighters should do that, what makes this stand out is Miesha Tate, former bantamweight champion, just came out publicly and bashed the hell out of Aspen Ladd and called her a cheater several times for the entire incident.
Yeah. We have differing opinions on this, I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. All I know, I didn't see it live, but I'll outline it for people listening that may not know. Like, Aspen historically has had trouble making 135 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes out very strangely to hit the scales, and the fact she's apparently wearing sweatpants and a headband.
One of the biggest bonehead moves I've ever heard of.
Yeah, which doesn't make a lot of
Like,
sense.
what are we doing?
And from the spin I hear afterwards, which may just be spin, it was because she was a little disoriented with the cut already. But anyway, she gets on the scale, and of course she's over by like 3.5 to 4 pounds over.
Mm-hmm.
So then she steps off the scale, and they call for the curtain, which is what they bring out when a female is going to, or a male for that matter, is going to strip down completely and then get back on the scale.
Is this on the first weigh-in or the second weigh-in they do the towel?
This is the second they do the towel. So she weighs in fully clothed on the first, and then like, and they do the towel. And so she strips down, and she gets on the scale, and she's supposed to raise both of her hands up above her head while behind the curtain. And the commissioner, whoever tells her to do that, she can get one hand up and she's shaking. Okay, she's visibly shaking, and they're not getting a good reading on the scale. And she says she can't get her other hand up. She's just too weak. And she's visibly not looking well. All right, whatever. And they go with the reading that they can get, which is ultimately 1 pound over, but it's kind of a sketch reading because it's bouncing all over. And then Macy declines, and then that's what we hear until this comes out. Her coach responds that the clothing was, because her coach came out and responded to Miesha's cheating, says that her clothing was sweat-soaked, and that's where all the weight went, because there's two things at play here. One is she couldn't get her other hand up, and two, that was a lot of weight to lose, right? He says it's her clothing, and she just couldn't get her hand up. And fuck Miesha Tate. Miesha says that's total bullshit. She was hanging on to a towel in order to make her weight lowered, kind of like we all saw Daniel Cormier do.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, like I said before, that is one of the biggest bonehead moves I've ever seen.
Which part?
The fucking weighing in with your clothes on. Like, I don't care how out of it you are. I'm sorry. I've seen people fucking make weight on death's doorstep, and like the whole thing where we're supposed to feel sorry for people who don't make weight. I'm fucking sorry. I don't give a fuck. If you miss weight, that's your problem. Like, straight up.
This is where we're in 100% agreement. And we'll get into this more later because we both have experience cutting weight.
Yeah. If you don't cut the weight and you expect to fight the next day, you're a fucking joke. Like,
no, that's the fight before the fight. And if you can't do that, then
you can't do that, you don't deserve to fight.
Which is why we both agree that fighters who miss weight, the fighter has an option. Their opponent has the option to take the fight or not. And it seems every time they do, it seems like 8 out of 10 times they lose.
Yeah. And here's where our opinions will differ, though. You don't really like what Miesha said. You think it's a little much.
Well, I just think I went back and watched it. Like, you can't point and go there, right
Yeah.
there. See this? She's cheating. Like,
I
you
feel
can't.
that, but I don't think it is more of like more of. I feel like she's like using her anger to like point something else out, but in her mind she's saying something completely different. Like,
Misha?
yeah,
Okay.
I feel like it's more of they're in the same weight class. She's missed weight 3 times. She's won 2 fights after people have accepted fights with her being overweight, and that's just fucking sanctioned cheating at the end of the day. Like I
Missing
like
weight in general.
missing weight and fucking fighting and is sanctioned cheating. It's
Yes,
sanctioned
when
cheating.
the opponent agrees
Yeah.
to the bout, yes. One
Sanctioned
fighter's
cheating.
been allowed to cheat. I agree 100%.
Yeah, but
And you
like
go ahead.
I think that Misha's whole rant on her was 100% justified. Just in the same breath as if, like, let's say me and you are fighting for the world title, Jarrod, and you show up and don't make weight. You just stole my check. You just fucking. There's so much shit that you.
Especially
I
when
just
there's
went
a win
through.
bonus
Yeah,
for these
I
fighters.
just went through a 12, 14, however many week camp to prepare for this. I did all this, and you're not gonna pull your side of the fucking bargain? Are you kidding me? She is more. I consider her a cheater at this point too. Like, it's one thing to miss weight here and there in your career, but to miss weight 4 fucking times in a row is a joke. You're a sanctioned cheater. That's what it is.
That's our only differences in wording here, because I agree with everything you said, and I think Misha's a little bit harsh to throw that word out there when you can't see it, like with Daniel Cormier. Like, I'll say he cheated because you can see it. You can be like, oh, there he is grabbing the towel, pushing down.
The towel or not, cheating. It's showing up not on weight is cheating in my book.
See, I disagree. I think it's incredibly unprofessional, and I think Aspen Ladd should not be allowed to compete at this weight class anymore, to be clear, for all the
100%.
reasons you just stated. If you're doing it on purpose and just taking that 20% ding, yeah, you're cheating. If you're just a dipshit who can't make weight and whose team somehow insists that you can, you just shouldn't be allowed in the weight class anymore. But that's our only distinction.
Yeah.
And to be clear for our listeners, like, Paul and I aren't just a couple, like, fucking armchair quarterbacks here talking about shit we don't know about. Like, you wrestled. I was an amateur boxer. We've both cut weight multiple times. We've been through that struggle. We both know what it's like.
I've seen people do some crazy
fight.
fucking shit to make weight.
So,
and
yeah.
Anytime someone complains about they can't make weight, fucking find a way. Like, straight up. I've seen people do some shit that, like, is questionable. like some crazy shit. Like, where, like, it, like, could possibly have fucked them up for the rest of their life type shit. Physically, obviously, not like.
Look at Darren Till going blind.
Yeah, exactly. That happens. I've seen that happen to people. I've seen people literally can't stand up. The whole team's got to grab them each by one limb and throw them on the scale. Like, that's part of the game. If you fucking can't make 135 pounds, you should not be fighting at 135 pounds.
Agreed.
Simple as that. And for you to continuously try to fight at 135 and to continuously come in overweight and fight these other women while you're overweight is cheating.
Yes, and to be specific, for those of you that don't quite understand how it's cheating, the amount of strain that gets put on your body for these fighters, and this isn't an argument about whether or not there should be weight cutting in MMA. That's a whole different thing. It's happening.
It is.
And the strain that they're putting on is dramatic, and there's no way in hell in 24 hours you're fully recovered from these drastic weight cuts.
No.
And a person who even misses weight by, let's say, 2 pounds has a distinct advantage, because those last 2 pounds are the absolute fucking hardest to get off, and they're going to deplete your body the absolute fucking most. So they hit that cage the next night, not only a bit heavier, perhaps, but they didn't have the recovery time issues that the other fighter had. Exactly. And it also plays a part in knockouts. Like, if you are dehydrated, you're more susceptible to being knocked out. So it is cheating. In my mind, it is when the other fighter agrees to take the fight, I think it is exactly what you said. It is then turned into sanctioned cheating by one fighter who just paid some money to have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. You basically paid to cheat, because you're just giving up a little cash to show up. I
never not made weight, and if I did, I wouldn't expect to compete. I was going to show up at the Golden Gloves and not make weight, and then think that, no, it's cool. You can fight
wrestling's a little different. Like, there's definitely times I missed weight like when I was younger, but in wrestling you move up a weight class. It's not like fighting where it's like, oh, you can't move up a weight class because there's so many pounds between, blah 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 blah. In wrestling, yeah, there's still like 10 pounds between, but your dumbass showed up 0.5 over. So guess what? You're not a 145 pounder now. You're 152, or depending on whatever tournament you go to, whatever weight class is. You know, you're a fucking. You choose to not show up at the weight class, you get to fucking get your ass whipped by a bunch of dudes who are way bigger than you. That's just what it. That's what ends up happening. And in fighting, there's obviously no way to really do that because of matchmaking and shit like that. So that just makes it more cheating than it was before, because
you can't really insert anybody in there.
there's nothing they can do about it. You show up off weight and you expect to still compete. It's basically like it.
No.
Like I said, it's
Never
sanctioned
supported
cheating.
that. You and I have
Sanctioned
often railed against that shit on this show, and it's just I'm over it. Aspen Ladd. You can't be doing this shit. Regardless if your intention is to get an advantage or if your intention is to make the weight, it's the same either fucking way at this point. 4 times now.
The intention is now no longer a question when you miss it 4
It don't
times.
matter.
Like it just doesn't matter what your intentions are.
She did go up to 145,
And
but
got
she promptly
flatlined.
got flatlined by Jarrod and
Went right back down to 35 and struggled.
which is weird when you look at her. She doesn't
look like
she should be having a problem here.
No.
I
No.
don't know if she has just.
Maybe it's a dieting issue. Maybe it's a training issue. Maybe it's a lack of training issue.
She's got dense fucking bones. Who knows?
I mean, even if she does, fucking move to 45. Like Jesus, man. Like, you can't just keep playing this game though, where you show up overweight and expect to fight. That's just not. It's not right.
There's not too many other fights on this card that I want to talk about, but I do want to mention something that really stood out to me that I didn't say to you earlier about this broadcast. Like, it stood out dramatically. I can't remember if it continued through the whole card, but definitely I noticed a big change in the commentary. And I talk enough shit on this show about UFC's commentary and specifically Daniel Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
But they spent an awful lot of time discussing what was happening in the cage and explaining it to the point where I noticed it right away, and they continued through at least a couple fights.
That's good.
Yeah, and I hate to praise people for doing just the basics of what their job requirement is.
But no, it shows that they're listening.
But,
and
they never do that on UFC,
Yeah.
and I bitch about it all the time. I'm sorry, it's not the Daniel Cormier Storytime Hour.
Yeah.
Like, we want to know what's happening.
And they got rid of the Twitter things. You didn't notice that?
I did notice that.
They got rid of the Twitter updates.
Because I hate those.
Yeah, they got rid of them.
Oh, God, that's so good. Dude, it's only fair to point out when shit gets better.
Yeah.
And
it's starting to.
And it's not like I personally need. I mean, I'm a fight fanatic. I don't need commentators to tell me what's happening on the screen. That's not why I get upset about it.
But it's better for the growth.
It's for the growth of the sport. I love the sport. I want it to continue to grow, and for that to happen, people need to understand what they're fucking watching.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's like not obvious. Like, it's pretty obvious when people are punching and kicking each other.
Yeah.
But when they're up against the cage, when they're on the ground, it just looks like a couple guys rolling around to the casual fans.
Yeah.
They're like, what the hell is happening here? Why is this guy telling me about what happened in his gym with this guy and the other guy? That's the reason why. I want people to understand it so they can respect what they're seeing, so they can tune in and care about it.
Makes sense.
So
I agree.
Kudos to the team. I don't even know who he was with, honestly.
I think it was him and...
But I'm pretty sure it was only 2 people, which also made a big difference.
I think it was Brendan Fitzgerald, wasn't it?
Well, they did a fine job for large segments of that show. So please keep it up. And dear God, please keep that Twitter shit off there.
Yeah,
I mean, I get it. You want to sell advertising because that's all that's on there for. Is because it becomes a Twitter spot brought to you by Michelob or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank God. I mean, seriously, what was the point of that? Like, who cares what randoms or sports writers have the fight scored?
Yeah.
Or they say the stupid shit like, wow, that was a great punch.
Yeah, I feel that.
Enough. So good, man. Good on UFC.
All right, so let's transition from mixed martial arts. Let's talk a little bit about some boxing. So this coming weekend, we've got Wilder versus Fury, number 3. Obviously, a pretty big fight in the world of boxing. This is kind of going to decide where the biggest money fight is in the next coming months. Because obviously, last weekend we had, or not last weekend, 2 weeks ago we had Usyk with the big upset over Anthony Joshua, and obviously we want these titles unified. You know, we got to get to a resolution here at this heavyweight division. We got all these guys, and
Yeah, we definitely do. And not just an upset over Joshua, but a masterclass in boxing,
Yeah,
ass
he boxed
whooping,
his head off,
unlike
yeah.
like the Andy Ruiz, which was kind of
Mhm.
just like he KO'd him shockingly. You
Yeah.
know, this was let me show you how to box, son.
yeah,
He fucking sunned him in there.
yeah.
So yeah, this is an exciting moment in heavyweight action here because Fury does have the WBC title now, and of course he is still technically the lineal champion as well.
Don't even get me started.
It's not that discussion right now, but even the ESPN article references it.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, you know.
But yeah, I feel like this is the fight everyone's been freaking waiting for too, man. Damn, like we had the COVID cancellation. We've also had so much arbitration in courts and all this shit that has gotten
Well, it got
involved.
delayed so much that Fury's team at the end of 2020 was finally like, "Fuck it, we're moving on."
Yeah.
In October 2020, they said that that the clause had expired for the rematch, and they were tired of waiting.
Yeah.
And then Wilder threw that into arbitration. Meanwhile, the Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight gets made, and then suddenly Wilder wins in arbitration, and here we are.
And Anthony Joshua just lost to
And
Alexander
then
Usyk.
Joshua's done as far as being the title holder right now at this pivotal moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that fight's in the toilet. This fight here, there's a lot of difference in between these two camps, Paul, that is really standing out to me in the lead up to this fight.
How so?
You've got some similarities in the fact that they both have new trainers, okay, since their
Ish.
last fight. However, well, yeah, one guy, well, no, they both have new trainers since their last fight. But for vastly different reasons. Now, Ben Davidson left Fury's camp of his own accord. He was not fired, mainly because he didn't want to split duties with Sugar Hill Stewart, who Fury wanted to bring in. He said because he wanted to win by knockout, and he didn't want to win by strategy, so he wanted to bring Stewart camp in. And for those of you who might think that name is familiar, he is the nephew of the famed coach Emmanuel Stewart. Where you've got Fury getting rid of Mark Breland, not his only coach, but one of his main coaches, for a completely different reason, and bringing in Malik Scott. Let's talk about that. Why did he get rid of Mark Breland?
Because he saved his fucking life.
Meaning?
Well, in the second fight, things weren't going too great for your boy, and he got his eardrum busted, and he got busted up pretty bad. And
Wilder was getting his ass whooped.
wasn't turning out too great for him. So his corner saved his life and threw the towel, and he fired him for it.
And not only did he fire him for that, he fired him with some wild accusations. He said Breland spiked his water, drugged him,
and conspired with Tyson Fury's team to throw the towel.
Yes, and conspired with Fury's team. And Breland's a very well respected coach. I mean, he's one of the top names you can get in the sport, in my opinion, as far as that goes. That's an absurd accusation to make.
Former Olympian.
Yeah, former Olympian.
What are we talking about?
But that wasn't the only wild accusations that Fury has gone on to make. I mean, people are familiar with the fact, at least on the outside, perhaps, that he blamed his costume.
Yeah.
The 40-pound costume was too much.
Then egg weights.
Despite the fact that there's video of him training in weighted vests.
Yeah. Then he blamed egg weights, which were his gloves, but then his gloves weren't tied all the way on.
Fury's, Fury's gloves were weighted, then they were loose, and his fist was halfway out. All kinds of ridiculousness.
All kinds of nonsense. Yeah.
Kind of shocking, actually, that he can't accept a loss. Like, none of these accusations prove true. Yeah. So then he brings in Malik Scott, who probably isn't familiar to casual boxing fans, but he is a former boxer. He was a decent, somewhat contender at some point, I guess you could say. I mean, his claim to fame, unfortunately, is that he lost to Deontay Wilder by KO in 2013, immediately after getting beat by Dylan White. Prior to that, he was undefeated. He gets beat by Dylan White. He gets annihilated by fucking Deontay Wilder. I mean, he was even brought in as a training or a sparring partner by Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury busted his eardrum up in sparring, kicked his ass. I mean, so now he's actually busted the eardrum of both trainer and student, which is a little odd.
A little strange.
I mean, look, I'm not. Former boxers can obviously and definitely make good trainers. I can't help but notice a striking difference between bringing in what is essentially, to say it kindly, basically a journeyman fighter who had a decent start but didn't really become much, who doesn't really have a record of training anybody that I'm aware of, and then hiring Sugar Hill Stewart to come in. You've also got, but that's not the only difference here, Paul. Another difference I'm noticing is what are the things that that Wilder has been saying here recently about Fury? I mean, he's continuing with what?
He's continuing with the whole cheating thing. He's like, oh, he's going to find a master plan to cheat this weekend again. Like, you got to let that shit go, and you got to go out there and scrap, bro. You
This
can't
has
be
been
talking
unfounded
about this
after
bullshit
years now. Yeah,
years. Literally, like, I don't know what the fuck this whole conspiracy to cheat against, like that shit's got to go. That idea in your head's got to go. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Your mind is not on the fight if that's all you're fucking thinking about.
Not at all. Not at all. The camp of Fury, however, is saying that they're prepping for an improved Wilder. They expect Wilder to be better. They expect him to be highly dangerous, to be in peak abilities, that they're operating with a healthy fear factor to keep them sharp, to keep them
He's got to
on point, and that they expect this to be the absolute best version of Deontay Wilder that they've ever seen, which is basically the opposite. I mean, they're saying the opposite thing. Is you've got this mindset in the Wilder camp where part of it's delusional and thinking that this guy can only beat me because he's going to have a master class in cheating.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you've got the other side respecting the fuck, at least publicly, out of their opponent from what their coach is saying. They're even implementing a healthy fear factor. They're not taking this as a joke. The other fight doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think these things matter leading up to fights. The mentality of the fighters kind of reflected in their fight camp and their pre-fight words for what they can be taken at a face value. A lot of it's bullshit.
I feel it. Well, and like I said, I just feel like the focus needs to be more on the fight, not about some bullshit conspiracy theory of how someone's going to cheat against you.
I don't even know how Malik Scott and the rest of the team over there with Wilder, which Fury are they going to prepare for? The first one that boxed him up or the second one that mowed him down?
And the question also becomes, what do they think about all this shit he keeps saying about, like, fucking cheating and shit? Like, obviously they're going to go along with it because they'll end up like Breland, who was refused to fucking, go along with it. He was better on the night. That's basically what Breland said, and he got fired for that, So.
And add this into the mix, Paul. Check this out. Sugar Hill is saying that Fury is coming in 20 pounds heavier.
He's going to go 300
muscle.
pounds?
His second fight, he was 273. So, and
he's going to come in at 300 pounds.
Yeah.
I don't know, bro.
290, 295. That's what they're saying.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Did he mean
it's
like he
muscle?
put on 20 pounds of muscle, or do you think he like saying that he's going to be 20 pounds heavier than the last fight?
No, he's saying that right now, specifically, that Hill says he put on 20 pounds of all muscle for this fight.
Okay, so maybe he's still lighter, though, still like, because he lost some of that
Well, he's
fat.
a lanky guy.
Yeah.
And he went through that massive body
6'9",
transformation.
bro.
Yeah. So think about that, because Wilder is also small.
Yeah. I mean, he's not small, but he's just small compared to Fury.
He was at
6'3".
one point he was coming in at 217 in heavyweight fights. I mean, that's pretty little.
Oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, like
He's
like
tall.
height and
He's
length-wise,
6'5".
is he 6'5"? Okay.
Yeah, he's 6'5".
They're pretty close.
He's ripped looking, and he's lanky too, but Fury's just a big man. Like, he's a very large man.
Would he come in the last fight, like 230 or something like that?
He was heavier at 231, 232. In the first fight, I believe he was 217.
Something like that.
And it didn't matter. He got bowled the fuck over.
Yep.
If Fury comes in that strong. Some of that Sugar Hill action.
I don't know, bro. 300 pounds. That's real heavy. I don't know about that.
Well, I'm very
Because he was the heaviest. He was the heaviest to ever win the championship last fucking time, right?
Mm-hmm. But he's also the tall. I'm sure he's the tallest as well. And
Nah,
he's not just
is he
like
taller than Lennox?
Yeah, Lennox wasn't 6'9". Lennox was 6'5".
Oh, okay. Because before that, that's who was like the tallest, right? Wasn't it Lennox Lewis?
I'm pretty certain. But no, you know, I think of like Stefan Struve in MMA because he was the tallest MMA fighter at basically 7 feet tall. He was 6'11" at one point, and then he was 6'11" and a half, and then at one point he was 7 feet. I don't know why it was fluctuating, but he was
still growing.
He was very skinny and gangly.
Yeah,
like
I remember.
Fury doesn't look that way at all. Fury's just a big. He's like Shaq, kind of, but Shaq's like fatter, but like he's just a big fucking man.
I was gonna say it's not even like they're fat though. They're just like fucking humongous.
They're just huge. He's like a giant. He's not like a guy who's really tall and skinny. He's like Manute Bol or some shit.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like a fucking more like a Shaq body type. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And so that, like, there's a fighter, and I think it's the 130-pound division, Figueiredo, something like that. He's like 6'3" in this ridiculous class, and he's so tall for the weight class. Like Fury's not that guy. Fury's a fucking tank. Yeah. And I'm very interested in seeing what this extra weight would be when he comes in. Like
I'm curious to see if that like slows him down or like he just hits hard as a fucking. I'd like to see Fury out here knocking fools out. It'd be cool.
Fury's fight IQ is so high. I don't think he would do anything that would slow him down.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's not like, I mean, he has only 9 fights out of 20 that he hasn't fucking KO'd.
Here's the problem. If freaking Wilder's able to pull this off, we have to watch this fight a 4th time, and we'll never get a unified title. And that's just the facts of it. Because Wilder can win any fight. Like I've heard perfect examples. Like Tony Atlas said, Wilder only has to fight perfect for 1 second and hit you with that one big punch, whereas you have to fight perfect for the whole fight and not let him land that punch. Because we've seen it countless times. The second time against Ortiz is a perfect example. He was down 8 rounds on the cards, knocks him out in the 9th. Like, come on. Like, that's
Do you think
the thing.
Malik Scott has been able to counter the adjustments Fury made in the second fight? Because, I mean, the way Fury basically negated that was to rush in with all offense. And, like, dude, Wilder never had a chance to really get set and throw that right very often.
Yeah, he's going to have to learn how to fight off his back foot, I think. And that's something that I do think could be the difference in this fight, is not only him being able to fight off his back foot, but I think a huge thing that Fury did in the last fight as well was he was able to control Wilder in the corner when he was pushing him around, and he was getting a lot of, like, when he did hit him with that the knockdown that hit him in the ear, he freaking
he knocked it out in the 3rd and the 5th.
Yeah, but the knockdown itself came
busted that
from
ear
busting
open.
him up in the corner. Yeah. Keeping him in that corner and busting him up is going to be everything for him. So, yeah.
I'm very interested in this fight even more than the second fight, honestly. I mean, now that it's here, I didn't want it to begin with because I didn't think there's anything left to prove after the second fight, but it's here and we got it.
Yeah.
Joshua's temporarily at least out of the picture. And the dynamics of a Tyson Fury versus Usyk heavyweight showdown would be bizarre. Usyk 6'1".
Yeah.
Right? And a hella boxer, all kinds of movement. Tyson Fury 6'9" and a hella boxer with all kinds of movement. That'd be a very bizarre fight.
Yeah.
Like, I'm definitely rooting for Tyson Fury. However, you're 100% correct. Wilder can win this. He's definitely not out of the picture.
Never. That's the problem with Deontay Wilder is, like, if he's still like got his legs under him, you're fucked. But if you're like Fury and you rock him, who knows what he had really left in the tank when he was all rocked. But if you just beat Wilder, like not really like, you know, like the first fight's a perfect example. Like he was handily beaten by Tyson Fury for the first 10 rounds.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever, however many rounds.
It was only
before
the two
first
knockdowns
knockdowns.
that really evened everything out.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like when you talk about Deontay Wilder, you have to pretty much take his legs out of under him. If you take his legs out of under him, he's tough. He's more easier to beat. But if you don't, he can land a punch at any point and knock you clean out. I don't care how good your chin is. Even Fury knows like that second knockout was pretty iffy. They gave him a little bit longer. I felt it was a pretty intense count.
I thought it was legit.
It was legit, but I'm just saying like it was very theatrical is all I'm saying.
Well, the last thing I'm wondering here is if early in the fight, the first 3, 4, even 5 rounds, if it plays out like the second fight did.
Oh, Wilder's in trouble.
And what is Wilder's mentality going to be like if he goes in there and all this shit he's been saying is suddenly is negated? He's not able to do anything. He's getting pushed around. He's getting bullied a little bit. Is he going to lose it upstairs? Because
that's
he
where
seems to be having this weak mentality prior from the outside. He's cheater this, cheater that. I never lost. My fucking suit. Blah,
he's
blah,
always been a wild guy too. So
I mean, he was shook in the second fight. You could tell. He was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And Tyson's not going to have that advantage this time. But again, he mixed it up again, getting moving Davidson. Well, he didn't move Davidson left because he didn't want to split, duties. But bringing Sugar Hill Stewart in is a smart move for a high-level fighter. Like, it's things that I often wish that MMA fighters, like I wish Conor would do this kind of shit. Yeah, go ahead, keep your fucking John Kavanaugh, but why don't you go bring, like, Faraz Zahabi in for a fucking fight camp? Why don't you go do a whole fight camp there? Why don't you do
There's some fighters that do that. That's why
like
I think Valentina. Valentina's a perfect example. Her and her coach are so close that he's the one who sets up all these sessions with all these other coaches all over the world, and they go in there and they work with the top level people always.
For sure.
And that's what I think fighting's all about. Like if you really think about training, it's getting looks from every single different kind of like look you can get in the game, and being able to handle those when you see them in live action.
Exactly. And I bet Tyson looks at it almost. I mean, he's like a sponge. I mean, he soaks up what a guy has to offer, and then he's like, "Great, thanks," and goes to look for another book. So you know what I mean? Another viewpoint, another lesson, and that's really smart. I like it a lot.
And he never burns his bridges either. Like even though Ben Davidson's no longer with his camp, they're still like friends. He's still always rooting for Tyson, talking about him on Twitter, all of everything. So it seems like that relationship is still there too.
Which, to point out the differences in camps again, I mean, just compare that to the Breland thing. I mean,
exactly.
It'll be really interesting to see what we're talking about next week when we have a definitive answer as to what happened. Let's just hope to God, let's keep both our fingers crossed it's not a draw.
Yeah, jeez.
Could you imagine?
It'd probably end the freaking. That's honestly probably the best thing other than Tyson winning, because like if they draw again, it's gonna be like whatever. I beat you once, and we had 2 draws. I win. That's how Fury will look at it, because Fury's now the champion. So if they draw again, it's Fury's belt still.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hopefully, either way, we get a definitive answer as to when we'll see a unified heavyweight title again.
Yeah, hopefully so.
I mean, we were so close with Joshua and Fury until Wilder, frankly, came in and fucked it up. They offered him what? A good hunk of step-aside money.
To step the fuck aside.
He would have got winner.
Yeah.
Whatever. We'll see if that was smart or not. Because if he gets beat here, that's going to look real fucking idiotic.
Oh, yeah, very stupid.
And if he gets beat here again, he's in a tough spot.
Yeah, I think him and Joshua ought to fight.
I like that. I like it.
If they both lose. I think whoever loses fights Joshua, whoever wins fights Usyk. And that's just where it's at.
I like it, man.
Well, let's stick with some boxing. Kind of different, but let's talk about some bare knuckle boxing for a little bit.
BKFC?
Yes, sir.
My favorite combat sports promotion at this time. I'm excited. You have BKFC Montana coming up.
Notice there's no number on this one. It's just Montana. Huh?
Yeah, it's weird. It's a new thing.
Maybe because there's not a belt at the top, though. Normally they have like a belt at the top of like their fucking numbered events.
That could be. Kind of taking a page from I guess UFC does
like a
that
fight
with the fight nights.
Yeah, because it's like a BKFC Montana fight night. It was the commercial.
Well, I do find the headliner of this card to be pretty interesting. It is Joe Riggs versus Melvin Guillard.
Yeah, couple of straight vets.
Yeah, if you are a fan of mixed martial arts and combat sports, you should recognize both those names.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw Nick Diaz fight a couple weeks ago. I mean, Nick and Joe Riggs had some very memorable encounters.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I mean, they were even fighting in the hospital afterwards.
Yeah, after they fought first. Yeah.
After they fought in the cage, they both go to the same hospital. They start fighting each other in the hospital. I mean, and Joe Riggs, I mean, he's a fucking warrior, dude. The guy's got like
he's a legend.
70 MMA fights at this point. And
pretty much in every promotion you can think of, too.
He's only 39 years old.
Yeah, Jesus.
That just blows my mind, bro.
He's like, well, that older generation was like that, though. Like the Nick Diaz's, the BJ Penns, fucking someone who doesn't get a lot of love, but was like that, too, is like Gegard Mousasi. He was all up in that mix. Fucking Mark Hunt. All those guys, Loyola Machida, like all those like old school guys that are like still like in their like 30s now, they all have so many underground like smaller fights that like you can go back, like Bodog and like all these like weird fucking promotions before like the UFC was just like this undeniable thing when they were just another kid on the block. People don't realize there were so many like low-level shady promotions that happened where a ton of these guys like Riggs and Guillard too have like so many like legendary fights against guys who at the time it seemed kind of like how the Robbie and Nick first fight was, where it was like those are two up-and-coming guys before, but like now those are some of the most legendary guys in the game. Like Guillard also freaking.
Yeah, he's got over 50.
Over 50 fights in mixed martial arts. It's fucking ridiculous.
And he's only 38.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a bit of a downhill. I mean, and both these guys, I mean, they both made it to the UFC, WEC for Diesel Riggs as well.
Yeah.
And they both have a decent amount of experience in bare knuckle boxing, actually having both gone over to Britain to the BKB organization. Riggs competing for a title over there and winning. In his first fight, Guillard, well, doing kind of what he's done a lot of lately, and which is losing. All right, but he does have 7 bare knuckle fights.
That's a lot.
He lost his last one to this weird intentional foul, but I mean, he's 2-5 in bare knuckle boxing. He's not doing well in it, but he is in
both these guys
a lot of the
loss,
fights. Joe Riggs is 3-1-1 in bare knuckle. Having come over to the BKFC in, I think it was 2017 after winning in BKB, that title over there. In his last fight, you're right, it was a loss, but it wasn't without controversy. Like, I felt it should have been a no contest, personally. It was against Hector Lombard for their 200-pound, 205-pound title.
Yeah.
And just to refresh the listener's memory,
it wasn't like a punch.
What's his name? Hector Lombard was holding on to Riggs' shorts. The referee came in and tapped him on the shoulder to break it up, and Riggs kind of backed off, which was a mistake because you always protect yourself. And then Hector Lombard KO'd him basically and started beating on him.
Yeah.
And I thought it should have been a no contest. Whatever, you know, Riggs was doing good up till then. One. It wasn't like he got his ass kicked or anything. It was just kind of this weird thing that happened where Riggs was looking right at the ref who's saying to stop, and Lombard was directly in front of the ref.
Yeah, and it was weird too because it wasn't like a breakup kind of thing. He was like more like stop grabbing his like.
Yeah, he's like stop grabbing his shorts.
It's like you know like when it's like you know
weird.
like in mixed martial arts when someone's like grabbing a cage and the ref will just grab their hand and pull it out of the cage. It was like one of those situations where he more should have like stepped in, separated them both, restarted it like a normal boxing match.
Yeah.
But he like more or less was just like no stop, and then he just fucking. Riggs thought he was stepping in, and Lombard just kept fighting through and fucking KOs him.
So, and there was they stopped it for a while, and they looked over the tape and all, and ultimately it goes to Hector Lombard. But I'm glad to see Riggs back in it now. I think he's going to have a significant size advantage over Guillard here.
Yeah.
I mean, Goulard's fought as low as lightweight and as high as middleweight. In the last bare knuckle fight he was in, I believe, was in around the 170-ish, 175 range. And Joe just fought at 205.
Yeah, I don't know about this.
So, yeah.
I don't know about Guillard, man. I don't know if he should really be fighting anymore.
Dude, I was sad when I saw his MMA record. We mentioned he had 50 fights. Well, he's over 50. He's 32-22 now. That's
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
I mean, and I know you remember him back in the
Back
days in the UFC when he first came on the scene, the young assassin.
Yeah.
This fucking blonde hair and fucking dynamite fucking striking, dude. That guy has so much raw fucking talent.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was gonna go so far, and he just kept finding ways to fuck it up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. I mean, it's all documented. Kid is, or not kid anymore. Man's chock full of talent, and it did not get fully utilized by his own mistakes. And here he is. You know, I wish I could remember the details of his last fight where he lost in BKFC by intentional foul, but it was odd. I mean, you can't keep doing stuff like this. But he gets the headliner here against Joe Riggs, and I think Joe's going to put him to sleep. Personally, he's got a height advantage too. Joe's 6 feet. Guillard's 5'9".
Yeah, 5'9" and 200 pounds usually doesn't work out very often.
Yeah. I mean, Hector Lombard's like the only guy pulling that off, right? You like Riggs in this as well?
Yeah, I'm taking Riggs.
I'd love to get Joe Riggs on the show. I've tried before. I've been a fan of his ever since back in the day, man. He's a cool dude. I like his Instagram. He's a fucking warrior. He reminds me a bit of Chris Lieben, just in that warrior mentality.
Yep.
Like, dude gets out and gets it up and gets
Look
it
at
on.
that. Cleared that bitch.
Fucking, that you did. That was a cloud and a half, motherfucker. Also on this card that is a bit of a standout is Taylor Starling is making her third appearance in BKFC against Randine Elkholm. Starling, if anybody caught the last couple events, has definitely made an impact. She first showed up at Knuckle Mania, and she was the opening fight on that card.
Yeah, it was
which
a war.
Yeah, it got a lot of people talking.
Yeah.
Like it was a
Generated a lot of buzz.
a 5-round decision. Again, that she won against Segala, and it was on the biggest card probably still that they've had at the Knuckle Mania, which was the debut of Paige Van Zandt. And it was an amazing fight. Like, it was really, she's an exciting fighter. She's young. She's only 25. She's got MMA experience, a couple fights.
Yeah.
But then she also fought on BKFC 19 against, who was it? Cassie Robb, I believe. She came out, Cassie Rollo. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and I can't read my writing. I think it's Rollo. Regardless, she got knocked out in 28 seconds in the first round. She came out and looked real good. And BKFC needs fighters like Taylor who they're bringing up young. Like, she has MMA experience, but she's not, no slight to the headliners, but kind of done with their MMA careers and hanging on it in their late 30s. Like, she's a young, up-and-coming fighter who's choosing to fight in BKFC instead of go do other shit, which is exactly what they need. She's exciting. She's very dynamic with her striking, and I'm interested in seeing that bout as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like you said, that's really what's going to change this whole, like, promotion up, is one thing we have talked about a bit before that is kind of always been my little slight towards BKFC is their talent pool is a lot of, like, guys on the backside of their careers. So fighters like this that are coming in the middle of their prime, you know, fighting multiple times a year and stuff like that, that's just going to help build not only their brand, but help build the talent pool in BKFC, where other people are going to see her and be like, I can beat her, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm going to fight bare knuckle, you know, and all this shit. And then that's how things pop off.
They're quietly building some very legit women's divisions over in BKFC. I mean, you're definitely correct on the men's divisions. Most of their big name talent are like retired MMA fighters and boxers.
Yeah.
Okay. But their women's, I mean, they got Paige Van Zandt and Rachel Ostovich, who, yes, they are former UFC fighters, but they're also very young and in their prime.
Yeah, they're still
not,
pretty young, yeah.
I mean, they're not on the tail end of their careers.
Although I think Paige is done in BKFC. I can't imagine her.
She has
doing
another
much.
fight, but I'm with you. Like, I mean, we have a whole video breaking down why I don't think she can win if she doesn't pick some glaring issues.
And Rachel, I don't know, that might have been a one and done for Rachel too.
Well, she was talking like she wants to keep going, and she looked good. I'm like,
She
Paige,
did, yeah.
she looked
She looked really good,
like
I thought.
she put some work in.
Yeah.
And they have some other solid younger female fighters other than Taylor Starling that they're, before anybody knows it, they're going to have a really deep divisions there.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, she's 25, she's up and coming, and she's already on her third BKFC fight. And we've talked about this a lot, and I think it'll continue this way for the foreseeable future. But what's the most valuable asset you can have in the BKFC?
What's that?
Experience in BKFC.
Yep. For real. Because most people just don't in general.
And we see a drastic difference between fighters like, for instance, like Julian Lane. Okay, he's a guy who started off super raw, but now he's got like 6-7 fights, and you can see the difference in these fighters that have, like, it's usually like 4 fights and over. Their strategy is different. They get what they're doing a whole lot better. They see it better.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole different level, and it's one you can watch happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm impressed by fighters like Rachel Ostovich, who actually came in and showed a lot of that from the beginning, instead of, say, Paige, who had that transitional problem where she doesn't get it. You can't spar with this stuff. How are you sparring? You know, we're about to have some guests on the show that are BKFC fighters, and that's one thing I want to ask them is, what is your sparring like?
Yeah. Because
I would think, Paul, what do you think about this? Wouldn't sparring in, like, traditionally in boxing, you got the big, like, the 18 ounces on, like, wouldn't that be a detriment to BKFC sparring in big ass boxing gloves? You're going to have the habit
of the defense
thinking you have way more defense than you have.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. Maybe training in, like, UFC style gloves is probably the way to go. I would think maybe something along those lines.
I'm very intrigued in finding that bit out. But
yeah, overall,
this Montana card looks like typical exciting action from Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. It's on their app, which is still just like, I think they raised the price by $1 since I got it. Mine is still $3.99, but I do believe it's $4.99 a month.
Whoa,
which
talking crazy.
Apparently, Feldman's strategy with that price, because it's so low, you got to be like, what are they doing? Because you get their pay-per-views every month on there. Plus, they have little shows. They have their little fight, little like fight camp shows.
Yeah,
all kinds of things. Their Toe the Line series. Other stuff, all for this $5. But I guess Feldman is looking to combat piracy by just being so cheap that why would you pirate BKFC when this?
Yeah, you're a real bum if you're pirating a $5.
It's like $1 a week, bro.
Yeah.
Come on, dude. It's the type of shit you can't turn it down. It's so cheap.
Yeah.
So I would encourage everybody listening, if you haven't already, to check out Bare Knuckle Fighting. Even if you don't get the app and watch the actual card, you can check out the prelims for free on YouTube. But I will say, typically, the skill level you see in the prelims is drastically different than the skill levels you see on the main card.
Yeah.
All right, those prelims still kind of have a wild feel about them to me. Some of them are near tough man style. Yeah. Not all of them, some of them.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. Come. It's a good time either way. It's fucking action.
Hell yeah.
5 2-minute rounds.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that about wraps our show up for today.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're brand new to the show, you can catch us on KLVM Radio on Tuesdays at 3:30 p.m. We're also all over the internet where podcasts are distributed everywhere from Spotify to Amazon to Audible and everything in between. We've got all that information in one handy-dandy place.
SWATMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button, and go ahead and support the podcast, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
Later.